just got to really incentivize young people that working with your hands and working hard with your heart and with your mind and with your body is a good thing. God created us to work. And so we've got to really get off this twisted mindset that you have to be a doctor or a lawyer to be successful in America. That's really put us behind, and it's made young people not want to hold blue-collar jobs because they think the only way to get by, so to speak, is to go to school for 8 years and get $500,000 in debt, only to not use that college degree.
And you even mentioned the bully pulpit and the influence that it can have. Even the other night, he talked about depression and the best way to fight depression and working hard. And my mom always would say to me, hey, if you're down and you're depressed, go do something for somebody else. Go work hard. Go mow the lawn of that elderly couple down the street or whatever it might be. And even little things like that, where you're actually encouraging the people in your constituents, in your nation, to do better, to work harder, to lift themselves up instead of feeding the victim mentality and encouraging them to stay in the doldrums or stay down or whatever it might be. It's just such a difference in mindset. So you're spot on, man. And I think there is a real opportunity. It's one reason people remember Ronald Reagan fondly, because he was, really capable of doing that. And so we need it. We definitely need it. And I think it could be, for such a time as this, which is weird because, right, Trump is, he's like a Cyrus or a Nebuchadnezzar from the standpoint of, he's doesn't line up with us on all of our faith values, but yet he's like a cultural Christian or something. It's like he brings to the table the rhetoric is necessary for our people to get to work and do the things that make a nation free.
Yeah, that's right. And to your point about Trump, this is an election, as many have been in the past. This is an election, or are we going to be moving the ball in the right direction, or are we not? That's a fact. And the broad implications that a Trump presidency can have for the evangelical movement, for evangelical Christianity, for policies that are biblical in nature, that honor God, the upside and the opportunity with the Trump presidency are very broad, very deep.
And the opposite is also true, right?
Yes.
Such a disparity of how bad it could be on the other side of things for the Christian community.
Absolutely. Yeah, you get a Harris presidency, Christians are going to have no seat at the table. We're going to get radical judges. They're going to continue promoting Planned Parenthood and abortion on demand. The implications, folks, here is very broad, very deep. And the chasm between the two parties is also deep and wide. So we've got to vote. The president isn't our pastor. He's not our spiritual leader. We got to have wise stewards of our nation. We'll be back in a few.
This election is critical, especially for the lives of the unborn. Select states have abortion on the ballot. They're more interested in protecting abortion instead of the innocent unborn children who can't speak for themselves. Maybe you know your state is one of the guilty ones, but if you're not sure, please find out before you vote. We have a list of states and the measures they're trying to pass. Visit afaaction.net/life to keep our preborn babies safe in the womb. afaaction.net/life. When you hear this
is American Family News.
You know what follows is the truth. Your news from a Christian perspective.
Hundreds of teachers are going to have to walk into that school building, and they're forced to swallow political ideology that in many cases violates their very faith and conscience.
If you miss it at the top of the hour, American Family News podcasts are available at afn.net. And sign up for our daily news brief at afn.net.
If you are 65 or older, you know this. Inflation is hitting everyone hard right now, especially when it comes to healthcare. Over the last 10 years, healthcare costs have skyrocketed by, get this, 230%. If you have Medicare Parts A and B, you know there are still out-of-pocket expenses like deductibles and co-payments, and they really add up. And here's some good news. MediShare 65 Plus is designed to fill in those gaps and help protect you from rising healthcare costs. At only $99 per month up to age 75, you get peace of mind at a price you can afford. And MediShare is trusted too. It's been around 30 years. It's not some big impersonal thing. It's a community of people helping each other. Business owners, pastors, retirees. People love it. MediShare 65 Plus just makes sense. To learn more, give them a call. They're great to talk to. They'll offer to pray with you each time you call too. Call now, 833-45-BIBLE. That's 833-45-BIBLE. 833-45-BIBLE.
Hello, Americans. I'm Todd Starnes. Stand by for news and commentary next. Panhandle Junior High School in Texas started a Bible study for teenagers called Donuts and God. I can't think of a better combo. The kids get a sugar high by eating glazed donuts, and they get a spiritual high by reading God's Word. But the Freedom from Religion Foundation got wind of the event. Now they're threatening to sue. The Wisconsin-based group of atheists have a history of targeting smaller school districts. They're about as welcome as a cavity. They allege that government-sponsored Bible studies are against the law, that advancing a religious message is inappropriate and divisive. They say Panhandle Junior High may not host or promote the Donuts and God Bible study. Now, fortunately, this is a Texas school, so hopefully the Lone Star State will politely inform the atheists to pound sand. Only a godless heathen atheist would get triggered by a dozen glazed donuts and the Almighty. Hey, be sure to download my new podcast. It's available at ToddStarnes.com.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio with your host, Walker Wildman.
Welcome back to the core. Walker Wildman here live with you. Rick Green also live on the program. It's your November 4th election, pre-election day show where we're trying to really, Rick, hopefully get people pumped up so they go out to the polls and vote.
Amen, brother. And by the way, I was listening to that 1 minute from our friend Todd Starnes. I think I'm going to text him and say if anybody wants to get rid of those donuts, they can send them to me. So
You got it covered.
Can you imagine the things people object to these days?
Oh, I know. It's absurd.
like they're looking for a reason to be offended. I mean, they walk around going, okay, what can I be offended by? They just love being the,
And
offended.
this, to your point, this precedent where school districts tell people they can't pray at graduation, you can't pray at the football game. I mean, this is absurd, Rick.
Yeah.
I mean, not only is it unconstitutional, but the fact that we don't have, we need school administrators and school attorneys with some backbone. I mean, enough of this telling students that they can't pray. I mean, it's patently absurd.
Yeah, and what happened to freedom of speech, freedom of religion, for all these things that freedom of conscience and the American way, right? The idea that you could actually express what you believe, and in all these cases, it's not the school saying, "Hey, everybody, you have to do this." It's some kid gets elected by the other kids and gets up and says a prayer or says something that they believe. I mean, that should always be allowed, even if they're saying something that we disagree with, and we should respect that and believe in the arena of ideas. And the whole Coach Kennedy case, I mean, think about it. This guy's literally just walking out to the middle of the field after the game, not taking anybody out there with him, and going out there just to thank God for this opportunity to have a positive influence on these kids and that nobody got hurt. And we're going to take that all the way to the Supreme Court. And I'm glad they did, because now we got one of the best Supreme Court decisions of our lifetime as a result of Coach Kennedy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Rick, have you been keeping up with the polling and the early voting and all this stuff going on over the last few weeks?
Yeah, I try to keep it in perspective, because I think the pollsters are even missing something. I'm even more optimistic than a lot of our friends right now, and it's cautiously optimistic, right?
Yeah.
We're not encouraging anybody to stay home at all. It's the opposite. You got to press the gas, and everybody tomorrow has to go vote.
Yeah.
But I'm out there a lot, and almost every night with a different crowd across the country, and I have never in my life seen this kind of energy. And I know the overall voting turnout is going to be only about 50%. It's not bigger than normal.
Yeah.
But the people that are turning out, I have never seen the church this energized in my lifetime anyway. And I've been doing this 30 years out there campaigning and doing stuff. So, whether or not, that I'm not saying that's going to be the outcome. I'm just saying from what I'm seeing in my bubble, in my, echo chamber, if you will.
Yeah.
It's an unprecedented level of energy. Back to what we talked about in the first segment, I think because of those things, because people have just been pushed. They've been pushed around too much, and they're done, and they're just saying, I'm not gonna stay quiet. And it's catching on, man. The courage is catching on. The energy's catching on. So regardless of what happens with the presidential race, I think there's a movement right now that's beginning. And let's say Trump wins tomorrow. Well, if he wins, then all that's going to do is provide air cover, basically, to try to stop the feds from infringing so much. But then we as citizens have to do our work in the community to take back ground, take back the nation, and restore godly principles. If Trump loses and Harris wins, then we're going to have to, it's going to be even more important for people to stay in the fight and fight both to prevent the feds from completely taking over our lives, but still fighting at the local level to provide, basically safe haven. So I'd say all that to say, tomorrow night is not, okay, check out time, regardless of which way it goes.
Right.
Tomorrow night is, okay, let's rest for a few days and then get right back into it, because we've got a duty and responsibility to do this.
Yeah, that's right. And to your point, before we begin this last segment and talking about some of the numbers, you need to vote. It doesn't matter who you think is going to win. You need to vote because it's the right thing to do. So this is not a, sit back and get your popcorn and watch the show. This is you need to get out and vote tomorrow if you haven't already. So that can't be emphasized enough. Vote, vote, vote. I'll be voting tomorrow as well before I come into work. But Rick, to continue this discussion, Republicans have been dominating in early voting compared to previous election cycles. And the numbers for this is a combination, to your point, we're not going to see the same turnout that we had in 2020. That was abnormally high because of the whole COVID mania and the mass mail-in voting that we saw that's not taking place, partially not taking place this cycle. So you're seeing total turnout actually down from 2020. But nonetheless, you're seeing some shift from Democrat to Republican in a lot of this early voting totals. I want to play this clip here. This is Democrat pollster, actually Democrat political pundit, actually admitting that the early voting numbers are pretty scary for the Democrats and Kamala Harris. Clip 3.
What's their biggest concern right now if you're the Harris team?
Republicans do have an advantage in early vote numbers. When the early vote come in, it's going to look a little bit different than 2020, and that's scary.
All right, so that was a former Obama campaign manager on MSNBC. Jim Messina is his name. He helped with the Obama 2012 campaign. But Rick, his assessment is true, because when you look at these early voting totals in several of these swing states, Republicans are leading in the early vote, which has never been done before. And that doesn't mean that there is the potential that election day voting could be down a little bit for Republicans compared to previous cycles. I mean, that's pretty much going to be a fact. But still, even if Republicans break even or do a little bit better on election day, Rick, compared to Democrats, if they go into election day leading in early voting, that's not good for Harris's campaign.
Yeah, man, I think the big question is, are we cannibalizing our vote, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that the Republicans are basically getting all their votes out in early voting and therefore going to be really down on election day, or do we kind of, meet kind of a 50-50 on election day, and therefore you see a big swing overall for Republicans? We don't know, but it is highly unusual to see Republicans turning out in these numbers. And in some states like Pennsylvania, it's a massive difference compared to what it's been, 4 years ago, 8 years ago. The trends are huge. And you remember, Walker, there was it 2020 or 2022 when even Trump said, don't early vote, go on election day, and we were all saying, no, don't do that. That's not smart. That's going to let them know, to shut down the machines on election day and cause problems. Or I've always been an early voter anyway, just because I'm afraid what if you have a car wreck, or what if your kids are sick, or what if you're sick, or whatever it might be. So plus, when I was in office, I wanted to be shaking hands at the polls, so I would go early vote for myself and then be standing at the polls to shake hands or whatever on election day. So all that to say, I do think this trend is huge for Republicans. This is very, very good for the Republican side, very bad for the Democrat side, and it's across the board. It's really throughout the entire nation, but especially in those key states. And I keep mentioning Pennsylvania. Everybody's saying that's the bellwether, right? Whoever wins Pennsylvania is going to win the whole thing. I mean, there's possible scenarios for both sides without Pennsylvania, but very unlikely. So Pennsylvania is the state to watch. And I don't know if you noticed, man, but I mean, you talk about a rally every 20 minutes. I mean, it seemed like there was a rally somewhere in Pennsylvania for either side every day for the last week. It's been pretty remarkable how much both sides have invested there.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's also going to affect that that Senate race there, you know, and then of course you got the Senate race in Virginia that could be affected. Virginia now seems to be in play. So I don't know, bro. I'm, again, like I said earlier, cautiously optimistic, but based on those early voting numbers, yeah, I could see a landslide victory here. They're even saying that Trump is polling, you know, basically could win the popular vote, which, you know, that spells doom for the Democrats. They need to be ahead 2 or 3 points at least in the popular vote to have any chance at winning the Electoral College.
Yeah, and I don't know. I've heard that too, Rick, and it's possible, you know, but I'm leery on that just because of these, you know, California, New York. I mean, these are heavy population centers. But it's possible. Did Reagan win the popular vote?
Yeah.
I guess he had to.
In '84, of course, that was the big one that Mondale only won his home state. Yeah,
as many states as Reagan won in '84, he had to win the popular vote. Through math. But this is Rick. Here's kind of what I'm thinking, and I've got one more clip before we end the segment. But I'm optimistic. I'm not overly optimistic though, and I think we have to understand, and I think that the Trump campaign and the MAGA types are really kind of in an echo chamber at this juncture, and they're rejecting bad news and they're hyping up good news, and that's fine. I get it. That's politics. But we've got to remember, Rick, we live in a 50-50 country.
That's right.
I mean, Trump could win the electoral vote, you know, with 300 plus electoral college votes, and that's great for him considering, you know, the state of play. But we're still a 50-50 country. So if you remember how many people voted for Joe Biden, and I get it, there was fraud, there was shenanigans, there was mass mail-in voting, there was Zuckerberg bucks. So I understand all of that, but still, Biden was a terrible candidate. I mean, he spent the entire campaign in the basement, if you remember. I looked at that and said, there's no way this guy can win. Absolutely no way. And he did. Now, he narrowly won. I mean, Georgia, Wisconsin, Arizona, I mean, these were under 10,000 votes. And when you actually look at them, most of them were probably fraudulent votes. But nonetheless, he barely won those states, but he still won those states and won the popular vote. So there's just a lot of people in our country that are hardcore Democrats, and they don't care who's on the ballot. And so I think we need to bring that into realization that we're still a country divided 50-50 down the line. And I'm thankful to God and thankful to our founding fathers that we had this thing called the Electoral College. Because we would be up a creek without the Electoral College.
You're right, man. And another thing to remember is it's not even just a Republican-Democrat split. There's a worldview split in our country right now. We have a massive number of people in our nation that came through an education system that taught them that Marxism and socialism is good, and taught them that America is bad, and taught them that Christianity is bad. I mean, there's a huge chunk of this country that's all they've known. And so if they only get their news and they're in their echo chamber and they only get their news from a CNN and that sort of thing, of course they're going to believe those things. And so we've got a lot of work to do no matter how this election turns out. This is one of those generational fights where you have to actually change back the education. And so actually believing in truth, teaching justice, teaching the American way once again. I mean, that's the work ahead of us, and that's one reason, you know, I'm still on the, hey, everybody go vote tomorrow, but already saying, okay, now, remember, when this thing is over, when this election's over, no matter what, going into 2025, we need to be thinking generationally and doing the hard work to claw back ground in our communities for the long term for our kids and grandkids. That's why I said earlier, when when you make that donation to AFR and you shift that money from the government to an American Family Association, that type of donation is an investment in that generational fight, in that generational effort to bring back truth, justice, and the American way.
Amen. I want to play one more clip. This is former Philadelphia, Pennsylvania mayor. I think he's now a city councilman, but nonetheless, he's talking about the margin that Kamala Harris needs on election day in order to beat Trump, according to the early numbers, rural Pennsylvania numbers. Let's listen to clip 4.
It is highly difficult to become president of the United States of America without winning Pennsylvania. And so the stakes are very, very high. The polling, every poll that I've seen shows it either very close, a toss-up, 2 points here, 2 points there. I think what you want to look for in Philadelphia, this is all about turnout. Some of us are old enough to remember efforts that were made to elect Wilson Good, first African-American mayor in Philadelphia 40 years ago. That was an all-out effort, and we'll need that similar kind of effort this time around. Pretty much the same as 2008 with then Senator Barack Obama. And so it is my general view that Vice President Harris needs to walk out of Philadelphia with a net 600,000 vote margin to offset what's going on in other parts of the Commonwealth.
So, Rick, that's a Democrat, by the way, former Philadelphia mayor. He's saying Kamala Harris is heavily underwater in Pennsylvania, especially rural Pennsylvania, and she's going to have Obama-like turnout in order to win Pennsylvania. Your thoughts?
Well, anyone that thinks Kamala Harris has the charisma or the momentum or the inspiration of Barack Obama has obviously not watched a press conference or a speech of Kamala Harris in the last few months. So it's very, very unlikely. I think the only way that kind of turnout happens is anti-Trump, not pro-Harris, right? If they are able to gin up all this Hitler stuff and they, the lies that they have told, the violence that they have stoked by creating all of these false narratives about Donald Trump it's just evil, man. Yeah. It's so wrong. And the way to say no to that is to show up and vote tomorrow and vote for a future in America that is patriotic and that you want your kids and grandkids to grow up in. And I think even people in Philadelphia get that.
Absolutely. Well, I'm seeing similar numbers in Arizona. Some Democrats are heavily underwater in Arizona, which Trump lost in 2020. So it's going to be interesting to watch that as well. Both of those are battleground states. Hey, Rick, appreciate you joining me.
Enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be in touch, and you'll be tomorrow. You'll be on the program with the Core. So thanks for coming on, Rick.
You bet.
All right, folks. Rick Green, Walker Wildman, glad to be with you on this live edition of the Core. Tomorrow is Election Day. Vote, vote, vote.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
90.5 KTXG, Greenville, Dallas.
All God asks of you is faithfulness. Headlines in USA Today, did you see it this morning? All the odds against us. Faithfulness is the word.
There's a place for you on the battle line. Engage in the fight for America's families. Visit AFA.net and then take your position. A message from the American Family Association.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Robert Thornton. A fall storm system is sparking tornado watches, which are in effect for eastern Oklahoma and for north and northeast Texas through late afternoon. Here's Fox Weather's Bob Van Dillon.
And the reason why we've got all this humidity that's out ahead of this thing, you've got some wind shear that's developing, powerful storm at the surface going right through the middle part of the plains, and there's your dew points, and that means we're going to see a lot of rain.
The system will be weaker as it heads east on Election Day, but rain and some storms are possible from parts of the south to parts of the Great Lakes region. In the final hours of the presidential campaign, the candidates are still hot on the trail. Democrat Vice Presidential candidate Tim Walz was in La Crosse, Wisconsin today.
Doesn't matter if you're red state or blue state, big city or small town, everyone should get a chance to succeed. So I'm in this fight and proud of it. I grew up in rural Nebraska, and I always tell this, you get this, we have this fight when you're in this, when you say I'm from a small town, and I can see people say, how small? I say, 400 people. Not bad, not bad. And then somebody says 350. I said, yeah, 24 kids in my graduating class.
Republican Vice Presidential candidate J.D. Vance is in Michigan, and Vice President Kamala Harris is in Pennsylvania today and tonight. Former President Donald Trump will be in Pennsylvania today and will be in Michigan tonight. The Real Clear...
どれくらい待った
待たない。
あ、今終わったとこ。いや、ちょうどよかったんだね。だって荷物が置いてあったからずっと待ってたのかなと思ったけど、なんか見たら
しょんべんに行った。
ああ、全然待ってなかった。で今日はペルーの先生だったの？
休みで。
休み？じゃあ何もしなかったの？
誰もいないもん。
あ、誰もいなかった。
よく休むね、先生。
どっか行ってんのかね、多分。誰も来なかったの？
知らないよ、休みで。
ああ。じゃあお弁当は食べた？
食べたよ。
あ、全部食べれた？
ライスが残ってるよ。
ああ。それ捨てちゃっていいよ、お父さん、ライスは。もう。ライスと捨ててきた？それとも持ってきたの？
持ってきたよ。
ああ。あれ捨てちゃっていいよ、もう。古いから、ライスは。じゃあ身は全部食べたの？チキンと。
チキンは食べたよ。
あ、チキンとあとハムも食べた。スパムも。
大根が硬くて食べれる。
あ、大根はたくあん。
大根が残ってるよ。
ああ。
他は食べたけど。
サウナ入ったの今日は？そう。多かった？
多くないよ。一人ね。
あ、一人や。どっか出かけてんだろうね、ペルーの先生。ペルーにも去年帰ってたじゃない、何回か。
この前も休みだよ。
博雅の先生のとこ行ったらよかったかね。今日はたくさん来てた？今日は多かった？
誰もいないっていうか、休みだ。
雨だよ今日は。
近ずっとあれじゃない、天気悪いね。
ああ。今日エレクションでしょ。だから明日わかるんだよね、誰が勝ったか。トランプかハリス。
トランプが勝つよ。多分。
何ポイントかでもリードしてるよね、トランプは。
テレビで負けてるよ。2ポイント負けてるもん。
あ、テレビでは？
ああ。
お父さんはどっちがいいかね、ハリスかトランプ。
やっぱりトランプの方がいいんじゃない？
ハリスはほら難民受け入れるでしょ。爪私が切るから$20かかるの、1回切るのに高いから。だから私が切るから
見てない。
まあ、切る時あったらちょっと教えて。逆時には今日入んなかったの？
いつもだよ。
あ、逆時に入ってた。足だけ。足だけ入ったの。
一人いたってだから。さっき言ったじゃない、一人いたって。
ああ、逆時？
そう。
サウナにいたって言ったの。サウナとスチーム。雨が降るね、こっちへまた。この天気は。ストーンブリッジ。捨てちゃっていいからね。食べれなかったやつ、ご飯だったらもう新しく炊いてあるから。お父さんが食べるならいいよ、別に取っといても。でプラスチックのフォークもたくさんあるから捨てちゃっていいから。99セントストアで買ったから、たくさんプラスチックのフォーク。あれ使いやすい？
同じだよ。
美味しかった。
同じだって。
美味しかった、ランチ。
同じだって、いつも。特殊なものがうなぎとか入ってるんじゃないんだから。
今日初めてよ、ご飯。あれは今日初めてだよ、俺は。パンがなかったのも今日は。 腹空いてないかね今は。
今空いてない。
お母さんがサンドイッチ持ってきたよ今日。今日行ってよかったかね。そしたら今日行ってよかったかね。 はい。